Okay, welcome and good evening, League of Women Voter members and guests. I am Cammie Bassett, co-director of programs for the League of Women Voters of the Palatine area, along with my partner, Gail Benakis. The Palatine Area League was chartered to serve the towns of Palatine, Rolling Meadows, Schaumburg, Hoffman Estates, but we have members that come from many surrounding communities like Barrington and Elk Grove. Although we have women in our title, membership is open to anyone interested in participating in the democratic process. We would love to have you join us. We are proud to be nonpartisan, neither supporting nor opposing candidates or political parties at any level of government, but always advocating for vital issues of concern to members and the public. Tonight, we need a bit of assistance from our audience members. We are curious as to how many are watching from your home tonight, if you are a League member, where you got the information about this program, and if you have an interest in one of our upcoming field trips. A poll will be shared on the screen. Use your mouse or touchpad to click on the answer of your choice.
Okay, and I'm going to get started with that poll right now, everyone. I'm going to launch it and you will see 5 questions on your screen. We'll have approximately a minute and a half, give or take, to complete it.
For those of you unfamiliar with polling, you do have to drag down the side to get to the bottom. There are 5 questions.
Is everyone finding it okay, or is anyone having some difficulty? The numbers are looking pretty good. We're about 80% complete, and we've been doing this a little over a minute, so we'll give it another 40 seconds or so. We don't want to rush anyone.
Okay, we have a question. I can't get it to submit. Did you
They need to drag down the side to get all 5 questions to get to the submit to work.
It's a red button, Melanie.
Okay, I'm chatting with Melanie directly just to see if she was able to get it to work.
Thank you.
And to those of you who are being so patient, thank you so much. This is the kind of data that we use to inform the development of our programs and going forward. And because we're getting into the annual meeting time, it's important for us to take these kinds of polls. So we really, really appreciate your patience for it. Thank you.
So Melanie, thank you very much. Anyone that had any issue with it, we certainly do apologize, but she is going to be kind enough to submit her answers directly to me, so it'll be factored into the report.
Okay.
And we are going to stop the end of the poll in just one moment, and then we'll continue with our program. All right, everyone, we did really well. Thank you all for your time in participating.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Gail now. She's going to introduce our speakers.
So thank you to all of you, to our league members who are coming from across the state. This was one of the featured programs on the website recently. And to those of you who are our friends and neighbors across the Chicago northwest suburbs. Who are the people in your neighborhood? This is talking about immigration in the northwest suburbs, and we could not be happier than to have Partners for Our Community and the North Shore Legal Aid Clinic take us through this understanding. I'm Gail Benakis, the co-director for the League of Women Voters program area, and it is my privilege to introduce these three dynamic women this evening. Kathy Millen is the executive director for Partners for Our Community, and she unites schools and churches and cities and townships and libraries and hospitals, all by coordinating delivery of services directly to the people who have the greatest needs. For the past 18 years, Kathy has championed empowerment programs from cradle to career. Recently, due to her strength in building collaborative partnerships, Kathy was asked to lead a new collective impact initiative spearheaded by United Way called United Palatine. And this year, Kathy won the Township High School District 211 Community Leader Award. Kathy also teaches English as a second language and adult literacy classes for Harvard College. She lives in the Palatine community and is invested in seeing POC's children and families succeed. Our second speaker this evening will be Liza Gutierrez. She is also with Partners for Our Community, and she is the Access to Justice Grant Manager, Women's Leadership and Community Navigator Program Coordinator, and the Illinois Welcoming Center Supervisor. Liza began with POC in 2009 by providing case management for mental health care for the POC clients. Simultaneously, she ran the POC Northwest Community Hospital Mental Health Clinic via Cook County Health and Human Services. During this time period, Liza also worked for the Adult Acute Psychiatric Inpatient Unit at Northwest Community Healthcare. In 2011, Kathy Millen and Liza began what is now known as the ROLL program, Reaching Out, Lifting to Excellence. This is a women's empowerment program. And in 2020, POC received the Access to Justice Grant, which focuses on immigrant reliefs and social service support. And Liza now oversees 20 navigators for this grant. In her life away from POC, Liza serves on the North Shore Legal Aid Clinic Board, the Coalition for Positive Youth Development, and is an elected trustee in the Village of Hanover Park. Leah Hinjin Kim Yi is attorney, and she will be our third speaker, who has practiced immigration and nationality litigation for almost 10 years at the law offices of Chen, Cho, and Yi in Chicago. She has successfully represented clients before the Executive Office for Immigration Review, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, and the Northern District Court for Illinois. In addition, Leah has argued before a panel of the 7th Circuit Court of Appeals. She is an active member of the Korean American Bar Association, serving as president and previously as secretary and treasurer. Leah is a member of the American Immigrant Lawyers Association and regularly volunteers at HANA, the Center for Pro Bono Legal Clinic. So you now have three dynamic women who will be talking to us this evening about immigration in the Northwest suburbs. I turn this meeting over to them, and again, you will have a chance to have your questions answered at the end. We will not be stopping between each speaker. Each of them will pass the mic, so it is over to the next one. So Kathy Millen, we are beginning with you.
Thank you. And thank you for that wonderful introduction, Gail. My name is Kathy Millen. I've served as executive director for 18 years. I am a proud resident of Palatine as of 33 years, but born and raised in Mount Prospect. So the Northwest Suburbs has certainly been my home for many, many years. The POC, very interesting organization and exciting organization. What we are, Partners for Our Community, our name has changed. We were Palatine Opportunity Center many, many years ago, but our name was changed. And who we are is an organization of people, members of the community, business members from local businesses, churches, and other organizations that believe in lifting up the community and supporting the community. What we are right now, currently, we are a board. We have a board of about 17 members. Some of these members are appointed through the Park District, the hospital, the Village of Palatine, the library, and School District 15 and School District 211. These members are appointed, and that is incredibly exciting. For each one of them brings a skill set that is unique to the organization. The other board members are appointed, and they are members of local banks and local businesses and churches. And they also bring a skill set that's so valuable to our organization. When I meet with this board, I am always enriched. I am always humbled by the work that they give to the families and the community members. Their expertise is invaluable. We oversee a staff now of 27. And each of these staff members bring a skill set. We are a diverse, bilingual, bicultural staff. We are always looking to grow and add more staff that can meet the needs of the people of Palatine. And now Rolling Meadows and Hoffman Estates, Hanover, Schaumburg. We have expanded our horizons to the people that we serve, which is why our name was changed years ago. We went from just serving Palatine to now reaching out to other towns. We were asked to bring our model of business to these other towns, for it is unique. On one hand, it seems so simple. On the other hand, it is very complicated. What we do is we bring partners together that can share their expertise, they can share their skills, they can share their resources, that we come together to look at the needs of the community. And the way POC began was over 30 years ago. The town of Palatine annexed in this northeast part of Palatine. Upon doing that, leaders in the community, one of them is sitting right there, Linda Fleming from the township. These leaders knew that by bringing in this area of Palatine that is very dense with low-income housing, apartment complexes, we knew that there'd be many opportunities, some challenges and opportunities to find leaders, opportunities to lift up families so they can live the American dream and be active members of the community. So when this happened, these leaders came together and they said, we need to find a place. We need to find one location that we can all come together and provide wraparound services. Started off in a little apartment complex in Baldwin Road. Now we called Edgebrook, and we still call it Edgebrook, and POC still rents an apartment there. We do this because we know that is where our most vulnerable people live, in this northeast part of Palatine. And we do not want to have barriers for their efforts to succeed. POC looks at always reducing the barriers. And if transportation is one of the barriers, we try to work with that. When an individual felt his life was saved, the Northwest Community Hospital, the hospital bought a building, purchased on 1585 Rand Road. And this building became our central hub. It is now the home of 17 businesses and nonprofits that work together to meet the needs of every individual that comes to the door. Our number one goal is to treat any person, no matter what their age is, their background, with love and respect and dignity. We do that by having a welcoming person at the front desk. Now we share that space with someone testing for COVID and checking their health and making sure that they're safe to come into the building. Our staff there is prepared to greet each individual and then decide where in this building do you need to go for help, or where do we need to send you for help, or who do we need to bring in to give you the help and the assistances you need. That's one of our jobs. The other job is to go out into the community. We do not wait till people come into our doors. That's one part, but we also go into the community, into the neighborhoods, into the apartment complexes. And we make ourselves very visible, knowing that some individuals may not have the confidence to come to us. They may not know that we're there. Our job isn't to be reactive, it's to be proactive. Through the work that Lisa will be explaining in the Welcoming Center, it gives us this opportunity to meet more individuals. When we're out there looking for individuals that need service, we're also looking for leaders who can help us get the word out about programs so valuable and essential like immigration. Who is looking for work? What little child at District 15 has a mom that needs to learn English? These are all the questions our staff ask as we are on the road. Our staff are foot soldiers. One of my dear members of our community, Carmen Ray, always told me that POC should be foot soldiers and they should be out there moving and walking. We should never be sitting and waiting. Our job is to bring our services, bring potential out into the community and find out how we can best lift up the community. As you're looking at some of our programs, these are programs that make our work rich. They keep us very busy, but they keep us connected to the community. And even through the pandemic, our doors never closed. Yes, we could not have people enter into the building for a few months, but our staff were still there answering the phones and making sure that individuals knew we were there. They made many, many phone calls. They did lots and lots of Zoom meetings, and we felt that we stayed connected. Our job right now is serious. We now have many members of the community that are not quite sure if it's safe to come out. They are not sure if it's safe to come into the buildings. They're not sure if they can sign up for Harper classes. They are scared. Some are vaccinated, some are not. Our work is so important right now. It's to get back out into the community and say, we are here for you. What are your needs? How can we help? And this work will keep us busy. And when I lie awake at night wondering how we're going to get this job done, I turn to a staff like Liza Gutierrez. It is her expertise in working with immigration and the most vulnerable populations that's standing by our side and overseeing the staff that she sees and helping them to be professional and deliver expert services is how I feel that we are going to become very strong in the work that we have ahead. I feel like we are ready for the future. We are ready to take this step. And with Lisa beside me, I know that we're ready to do this work. And I'm going to turn it over now to Lisa so she can explain the Welcoming Center and how this work, this grant, has allowed us to reach thousands of people on Zoom meetings, hundreds of people face-to-face, and how we are ready to hopefully move into the next year with even more experience, even more guidance, as we discover who are the people in our neighborhood, who needs us, and more importantly, we need them. We need their leadership, we need their voice. Lisa, I'm going to turn it over to you now so you can talk about who they are. Who are these people that we're working with?
All right. Well, first of all, thank you, everyone. I'm truly honored to be here, and that on a beautiful day like today, a Wednesday, you've said, yeah, we want to know who are these people in the neighborhood. What is all this stuff that politicians are talking about? When Gail approached us, I said, of course we'll talk, but I have to bring Kathy along, and Leah is going to have to come along too. So I'll keep it brief because the information that Leah is going to share with you from North Suburban Legal Aid Clinic is going to probably give you the best information today. It's going to let you know what the path to citizenship, if there's even a path, looks like. So I'm a numbers person, and so forgive me for this because I really am truly a numbers person, a bit of a number nerd. In 2018, the federal government thought that we had 44.9 million foreign-born individuals in the USA, and of these, 11.4 were unauthorized, and that's according to the Department of Homeland Security. And just FYI, most of this information is coming from the Migration Policy Institute, the US Census Bureau, the 2019 American Community Survey, the 2020 Current Population Survey. We're starting to get numbers on that. The Decennial Service and the Department of Homeland Security, and of course, the Research Institute. So the 2019 data shows that Illinois carries about 4.1% of the total immigrant population in the USA. That's about 1,797,000 individuals living in Illinois. And just so you know, if we're in Palatine, in our area of Cook Cook, DuPage, and Lake County carry the most immigrants as far as townships. Cicero carries the most, followed by Hanover Township. So in our area of Cook, DuPage, and the Lake counties, we're about 1,529,000 immigrants, with the majority settling in these three specific counties. Moving on, I wanted you to look at these numbers so you could see who the people in your neighborhoods are. And so this gives you an idea of what we were talking about. Here you can see in Illinois, Cook County, this was the 2015 to 2019 data. It's a little bit more than that now. So who are they? Well, the median age in Illinois in our suburban area is 36.7. So about 36 years old. And nearly 51% are female. So it's usually 50. But the interesting thing is that about 100% of these females will be giving birth here in the United States. So they do have children that are born here. 26% are European, 24% are Asian, according to our 2019 numbers. Nearly 44% are married when they enter. Latin America, which encompasses South Central Mexico and the Caribbean, make up about 47%. That's nearly 50% of your immigrants are coming in when we look at our current 2020 status. Back in 2019, the data was reporting that 34% were coming in. There's a little bit of an issue with this data. They say Mexico, but Mexico is the route to enter, Brownsville, Texas, or what have you. They enter through Mexico. It doesn't necessarily mean that they are Mexican. They could be coming from Venezuela, Guatemala, El Salvador, and different areas. I thought was interesting. 77% of people that come to this country do so legally, according to 2017 numbers. Now, this is going to change in 2020, and you'll see we're waiting for those numbers. 66% of those become employed, but mainly in the service sector. So who are they? These are our janitors. These are the folks that during COVID, when we were staying home, they were still working the front lines in places that still needed them. So in the hospitals, these are our dishwashers, our cooks, these are our babysitters, very, very focused on the service sector of employment. I thought this was interesting when we think about the baby boom generation going into retirement. Pew Research says that, and this was in 2017, they said that immigrants are projected to drive future growth in the U.S. In the U.S. working age population through at least 2035. As the baby boom gen heads into retirement, immigrants and their children are expected to offset a decline in the working age population, and they're going to add about 18 million people working age between 2015 and 2035. So who are they? They're the next generation of workers. One of the things that people ask us is, these people that live here, you know, they come here, are they paying taxes? What's going on? Well, they do. 7.7 million are undocumented, but they are working and they are paying taxes. If you look at data from the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy in 2017, we could see that Illinois has a big number of immigrants, you know, so it's California, Texas, Florida, New York, and Illinois. But if you look at this, Texas has more immigrants than we do in Illinois, yet we're paying right about as much in taxes for immigrants, particularly undocumented immigrants. This is data for undocumented immigrants. They pay about $1,600 million in taxes to Illinois. And if you like numbers, you can do the math with the whole US numbers there as well. I didn't go that far, but they do pay their taxes. What's their educational levels? And this was the Pew Research facts that they brought up just recently from what they discovered in 2018. They just put it out now. So I thought this was interesting because we all know that this is going to change because of COVID. So 2020, we were saying that in 2018, if you're born in the US, 33% folks born here have a bachelor's degree. Okay, that's good. And only 32%. That's not a big difference. 32% of immigrants hold also a bachelor's degree. So we're on par. I have to tell you that I'm very interested to see what's going to happen in 2020 when so many kids weren't able to finish, complete, or couldn't afford, et cetera. So it's interesting to look at this data. What's more interesting is if you look at the numbers that are less than high school. I put little fingers pointing at it. I don't know if you see it, but it says Mexico here has 54% of individuals that are foreign born that have less than high school. Central America has 47% less than high school. And if you remember from a couple of slides ago, the greatest number, about 48%, were coming in from Central America, South America, Mexico, and the Latin speaking countries. So that means that we are working with folks that are about 36 and a half years old that have less than a high school degree in their own home country. And POC is one of the greatest projects that I know, because not only are we helping in anything we can, we also do education, and we do it really well. So I wanted to answer the question why they come here. And like I said, this was going to be very brief because I really want you to listen to what Leah has to say. I think that there's no singular story. I've been doing this for 20 years. There's no singular story, but the question I ask myself is, how bad are things in your mother country? And I mean, we're all proud. I was born in Chicago. I'm so proud of being a Chicago Cubs fan. I'm sorry if there's some Sox fans out there. I'm so proud, you know, Chicago proud, yeah. So how bad do things have to be in Chicago, in the US, for me to actually leave, to dare to leave, to risk my life and the life of my little ones, to immigrate to another country where I've never been before, where I don't know one, I don't speak the language, I don't know the systems, I can't carry my support system with me there, and then to be seen as a criminal because I'm not documented. So that lets you know that things have to be pretty bad in order for folks to cross over and come over. In 20 years that I've been doing this, I have yet to meet someone that's told me, well, I crossed over and I did it just for fun, and I was going to go back, but I decided to stay. I have not heard that one yet. Or, oh, I'm thinking about going back. I just came for a little bit. In my eyes, they're all, and I've always told this to Leah, they're all refugees. They're all fleeing something, whether it is criminal behavior in the smaller towns, poverty, or lack of services, or just intrafamiliar domestic abuse, etc. And they're seeking what we all seek: peace, prosperity, health, relief, and respite for their families and their children. The POC cases, over 90% of the ones that we deal with are survivors of domestic battery, sexual abuse, trafficking, child abuse, poverty, or substance abuse. That sort of shocked me when I first in my 20s started working with the population. I thought, is there no one that I can't say, hey, there isn't a sad story connected to that? That's why they're fleeing. That's why they're coming here. So the Access to Justice program that we have is a wonderful program amongst so many that we have at POC. And if you go to poc.news, you'll get some information on some of the programs we have. But what we do is we provide a safe space to empower all people. And through the Access to Justice program, we provide immigration education. We let them know these are your rights. This is what the Trust Act says, that you can trust your local police. You can call them and they will work with you on any domestic violence issue, if you've been a victim of crime, if you've been a victim at work. And you can do so without worrying that you'll be deported. Not only do we do that, we also like to educate on other stuff as well, like getting an ITIN number, which is a tax identification number that they can be contractual workers with, or that they can use for other things as well. We also provide immigration relief via our legal screenings. Access to Justice is a network of about 60 or so nonprofit agencies across Illinois from tip to tip. And they are dedicated to two main areas. One is incarceration and the other one is deportation. POC does the deportation part, or the immigration deportation part. And our goal is to bring some kind of immigration relief to individuals that are here, that are working, that are just trying to make it here in America. One of the reasons why, or the main reason why many couldn't seek further assistance was because they couldn't afford the legal fees. Through the Access to Justice grant and through lobbying in Springfield, we were able to get a grant for this, and it's up for renewal. And so we kind of have to every year fight for it, as Leah knows. And so what that does is now these families have a legal recourse. So all they have to do is pay and I say all they have to do is pay the court fees, which are still huge fees, but at least they don't have to worry about the legal fees. And Leah at North Suburban Legal Aid Clinic will talk to you about how they do it. And they do an amazing, very thorough program, and they're invested in this. And not only that, they have the mental health background for it when you're dealing with survivors of abuse, etc. We also have a welcoming space via the Illinois Welcoming Center where immigration topics can be discussed openly. And our job is to make sure that an immigrant and refugee asylee in the United States, in Illinois particularly, can have a successful run at it here. We provide access to support. We do access, support, case management, immigration, state services. Right now we have a housing grant. So we have so many folks that are facing evictions that's just pending. And we have outreach workers that will go out, educate on renters' rights, but that right now we can help landlords get the government funding that is available for them right now so that we can keep our immigrants or non-immigrants, actually all of us, in their homes during this period. And the best thing that we do, I think we do really well, is we really are like a web where we network with other agencies to provide services. And if that agency didn't do it for you, we'll find another one. And amongst all those agencies, that's where we found North Suburban Legal Aid Clinic. And I'll throw it to Leah now because she's been amazing at what she does. We've been working for about a year together, and we tag team, and tomorrow we're working till about 8 o'clock doing immigration screenings. So I'm very excited about that. My information is on this screen right here. And I just want to leave you with this quote from our good friend Jesse Jackson. America's not like a blanket, one piece of unbroken cloth of the same color, the same texture, the same size. Actually, America's more like a quilt, many patches, many pieces, many colors, many sizes, all woven and held together by a common thread. So when you ask me who are the people in our neighborhoods, they're just people like you and me trying to make it here in Illinois. And Leah's going to show you how difficult that can be. So Leah, you can take it away.
Great, Lisa, thank you so much. Let me just share my screen for my PowerPoint. One second. So good evening. Yes, my name is Leah Kim, and I'm the director of the immigration law practice at the North Suburban Legal Aid Clinic, and we're located in Highland Park, Illinois. At the clinic, we provide pro bono, so free legal services in the areas of housing, immigration, and domestic violence. So for immigration, we do it all from renewing your green card to filing for citizenship. If you're a victim of domestic violence or you're fleeing persecution from your home country, we'll help you with that. If you're a minor who's been abused, abandoned, or neglected by your parents, we also help you get some legal status in the United States. For housing, we help with landlord-tenant issues, security deposits. There is a moratorium on evictions, but once that is lifted, we will be representing individuals in eviction court. And with domestic violence, we help with orders of protection, plenary or emergency, divorce, child custody, visitation, and maintenance. We do it all. So if you have any questions on any of those topics, please feel free to reach out to us. Something, there it is. Okay, so today's agenda. So we're going to go over some quick immigration basics, some terminology. Immigration law, it's complicated, it's ever-changing, it's so much, and there's over 100 types of special immigration relief that you can get in the United States. They're broken up into non-immigrant. So if you're here as a student or as a temporary worker, if you're here as an immigrant visa holder, so fiance, if you've been petitioned by a spouse, and then there's humanitarian visas, and that's what we're going to go over tonight a little bit. Some special humanitarian visas that are eligible, that help individuals get some sort of legal status in the United States. But first, let's talk about some terminology. Undocumented. So what does undocumented mean? An undocumented person is a foreign national who either enters the United States without inspection or with fraudulent documents, like someone else's passport or visa, or they crossed the border, the north or the south, or they entered legally as a non-immigrant, but then violated the terms of their status, meaning they remain in the United States longer than they are allowed to stay here. And that's a majority of those individuals who come in. They come in at a port of entry like O'Hare Airport, and they overstay their allotted time here. Like Lisa was saying, there's a little over 11 million undocumented individuals in the United States. And there's about 4.5 million children, US citizen children, who have at least one undocumented parent. Now, what's a non-citizen? A non-citizen category applies to individuals born outside the United States and who have not applied for or have not been granted citizenship yet. So they can include undocumented individuals. They can also include people who are here documented as students, as workers, and tourists. And the mixed status family. A mixed status family is a family whose members include people with different citizenship or immigration statuses. So we see mom is a lawful permanent resident, father's undocumented, one's child is born in the United States, so is a US citizen. Maybe the older siblings here have deferred action for childhood arrivals. We see a lot of mixed status families in the clinic and in Illinois. And let's go over some quick immigration basics, which will help give a foundation for some of the humanitarian visas we'll be talking about tonight. So generally, an attending immigrant needs to be petitioned by either a family member, which is spouse, child, parent, or sibling, or an employer in order to become a lawful permanent resident. And once you're a lawful permanent resident, then you can apply for citizenship. But you must be a lawful permanent resident, a green card holder first, before you can apply for citizenship. And depending on the family relationship, an intending immigrant can wait up to 20 years in their home country before they can immigrate to the United States. For example, if you are a US citizen sibling petitioning for your sibling in Mexico or the Philippines or China, they're working on applications that are filed in the late 1990s, early 2000s. So that means you have to wait that long in your home country before you can immigrate into the United States with an immigrant visa to become a lawful permanent resident. If an individual obtains their lawful permanent resident status through marriage, which is very common, the lawful permanent resident needs to stay married for 3 years before they can apply for citizenship, okay? If an individual is married for less than 2 years at their time they're granted their lawful permanent resident status, they're called a conditional lawful permanent resident for 2 years and must file a petition to remove conditions before their 2-year green card is up. Or their green card, their lawful permanent resident status will be terminated and they can be removed from the United States. And a person can seek asylum in the United States if they have been subjected to torture or persecution or has a fear of future persecution in their home country. And the reason why I talk about some of these immigration basics is you'll see that in just one moment. These are the most common humanitarian visas, special visas out there for victims of domestic violence, victims of violent crimes, victims of abuse and abandonment or neglect if they're a minor child, victims of persecution, and victims of trafficking. Now, because I just described that a law, in order for an intending immigrant to be sponsored to get a green card, most of the time they need a sponsor based on a U.S. citizen spouse or an employer. And this can create a power dynamic where that US citizen spouse or employer can abuse and use your immigration status as a tool, as a form of abuse to the intending immigrant. And because of that, USCIS, United States Citizenship and Immigration Services, so USCIS, which is where you file these applications to obtain some sort of immigration relief, realized that this was happening. And because of the abuse and because of the reliance on the US citizen to petition for these immigrants, they created some special humanitarian visas to show that if you have been a victim of crime or extreme cruelty or abuse, you can self-petition, meaning you don't need the US citizen or the spouse or the employer to petition you, but you can petition yourself as long as you fulfill the requirements under each special visa. And we'll go over some of the most common ones today that we see on a regular basis at the clinic and also when we work with POC. So the first one is the Violence Against Women Act. Act, so VAWA, V-A-W-A, that's what we call it. It was created in 1994, so not too long ago, to address and acknowledge that domestic violence is a serious public health and human rights concern, not only in the United States, but internationally. So with the creation of VAWA, it created community-based organizations, crisis helplines to respond to domestic violence, sexual assault, dating violence, and stalking. It provided funding to help with victim assistance services and crisis centers and legal aid organizations to help these victims of crime. And even though it's Violence Against Women's Act, I have seen many men who've also been a victim of domestic violence in order to obtain humanitarian visas. And this also created an avenue for undocumented immigrants to become eligible for immigrant benefits if they're a victim of the domestic abuse. So what is the self-petition? So a spouse, child, or parent of a lawful permanent resident or a US citizen who is battered or subject to extreme cruelty may file a self-petition independently of the abusive parent, or spouse, or child. And these requirements are you must demonstrate that you resided with the lawful permanent resident or the US citizen spouse, and that you are subjected to extreme cruelty, mental, physical, emotional, financial, sexual, and spiritual. So in a lot of these cases, you don't see actual physical abuse, but you see a lot of mental abuse, emotional, financial, sexual abuse. They use, every time they get into a fight, they say, well, I'm going to call immigration, I'm going to get you to report. That's a type of an abuse. And we see that a lot in our clients. You have to show that marriage was entered into good faith, that you had a real relationship. It was not just to gain some kind of immigration benefit, that you have good moral character, and then you must file within 2 years of the divorce or the death of the spouse or the petitioner. And an affidavit of support is not required. What is an affidavit of support? So when you have a US citizen spouse petitioning for their intending immigrant spouse, they have to submit a form called an affidavit of support showing that they make a certain amount of money, that that this intending immigrant is not going to become a public charge, so they don't need to get any kind of public benefits for their survival in the United States. And this is a contract that is valid, that can be held up in court, and is until the intending immigrant becomes a US citizen. So even in a divorce, if there's an affidavit of support, that is valid, and the petitioner must show that they are going to support their intending immigrant spouse. So what are the examples of extreme cruelty or battery? So police reports, that's the number one. I've had a lot of cases where they don't have police reports because the intending immigrant is scared of calling the police because their spouse might have said, well, you're undocumented. If you call the police, I'll get you deported. Or they say or there's a general fear or mistrust of the police based on what happened in their home country. So even if you don't have a police report, we've been able to receive positive cases, but we really want, police report, court documents if the spouse or the parent or child was convicted of any kind of domestic abuse, reports or affidavits from judges, court officials, medical personnel, school officials, clergy, social workers, an order of protection, medical reports and photos of any of the abuse, mental health professional statements. Their own personal statement is the most important. I tell them, this is your story. This is your one chance to tell them everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Statements from friends, family members, and neighbors who might have been witnesses to either the good faith marriage or the abuse, and text messages, photos, recordings of any of the abuse that you might have suffered. Along with that, you have to show evidence that you're in a bona fide marriage. So you entered into a real marriage for love and not just because of an immigration benefit. So joint bank accounts, lease, mortgage, title, insurance, joint cell phone, if you have children together, photos to create an outline of your relationship, and social media posts. Sometimes when they are married and because the abuse is so overwhelming, they might not have evidence of any of their marriage. So we try to put together what we can to show they were in a real marriage with their abuser. So another form of immigration relief is a petition to remove conditions. So like I said in the beginning, if you're married for less than 2 years at the time your lawful permanent resident status is approved, you are a conditional resident, and you must file an application with immigration before the 2 years is up. And that means it's usually a joint application you file with your spouse. However, abuse happens, divorce happens. So what do? You don't want status to be terminated. So there is a waiver application for this. If you entered into a good faith marriage, but during the marriage you were battered or subjected to extreme cruelty, then you can file for a waiver, and you can file by yourself without having your spouse petition for you and file that application jointly. And it's the same thing, is very, very similar to the VAWA application I just explained. You can show that it was that you entered into real marriage, but because you were subjected to physical, mental, emotional, financial abuse, and you show evidence of both, you can get your waiver approved and you can become a permanent lawful resident. U visas. This was also created under the Violence Against Women's Act, and there's 10,000 U visas per year to people who have suffered of substantial physical or mental abuse as a result of having been a victim of a qualifying criminal activity. And they're listed in the next slide. We'll go over that in a minute. They possess credible and reliable information establishing that he or she has knowledge of the details concerning the criminal activity, and they have been helpful or likely to be helpful to a certified agency in the investigation or prosecution of the criminal activity. So, and the criminal activity must occur in the United States. There's 10,000 visas a year, and there's currently a backlog to 6 or 7 years for getting approval. There's right now, there's over 200,000 applications pending for a U visa. So it can take a very, very long time, but we see a lot of U visa applications at the clinic. What are the qualifying criminal activities? So these are some, or these are all the criminal activities that are listed under the U visa. If you have been a victim of a different crime that's not listed here, you may not be eligible. So domestic violence, felonious assault is one of them, murder, manslaughter, of course, stalking, torture, trafficking, prostitution, rape, sexual assault, and also blackmail, extortion, obstruction of justice, perjury, and also any similar activities. So in Illinois, there is no felonious assault. There's assault and battery, there's aggravated assault, aggravated battery. So we try to analogize those crimes to felonious assault, but these are the crimes that are listed only for the U visa. And so we've had a lot of clients come to us who've been victims of crimes, but because they're not specifically one of these crimes or similar in nature or activity, they're not eligible for a U visa. So it's very important to get a police report to determine what kind of crimes and look at the state law. And again, you have to be helpful to a qualifying agency. What does that mean? You must call the police. Sorry, my baby's crying. You must call the police. It's okay. My husband's with the baby, so she's not alone. So you must call the police and a certifying official. So a police officer, a court, state's attorney, a judge must sign off an I-918 supplement B form. So even if you are a victim of a crime, if you do not call the police or if you do not help with the investigation and you cannot get this form signed by a certifying official, then we can't file for a U visa. So I've had a lot of clients come in who have been victims of crimes, but unfortunately they never called the police out of fear of their own, and we couldn't help them. In Illinois, there's the Illinois Voices Act, Illinois Voices of Immigrant Communities Empowering Survivors. So the Voices Act that helps sort of codify the policies and the procedure that the local police offices have to do when they certify the U visas, trying to make it a little bit more unison across the Illinois. So what is substantial physical or mental abuse? You have to show that not only were you a victim of a specific crime and you helped with the investigation, but also that you sustained substantial physical or mental abuse. So injury or harm. And all this can include victim statements, medical reports, letters from therapists, counselors, medical reports. And these are some of the factors they consider: the nature of the injury, the severity of the perpetrator's conduct, the harm, the duration, and any kind of permanent or serious appearance, health, physical or mental soundness, and and any aggravation of a victim's pre-existing conditions. And an interesting part of the U visa is even if you are just a witness to a crime, if you can show that you sustained a substantial physical or mental abuse from this being a witness, and you helped with the investigation, you may also be eligible for a U visa. T visa. This is a special visa available to victims of human trafficking, which is labor and sex trafficking. And it's under the federal law, and that it has to use the act, means, and purpose model. So it has to fit into each category. There was an act, which was to induce, recruit, harbor, transport, provide, obtain, patronize, or solicit. The means, which is force, fraud, or coercion, and the purpose, it was either a commercial sex act or labor, indentured servitude, slavery, labor trafficking. You have to fit into that act of the sex or labor must fit into the act, means, and purpose model, unless you're under the age of 18. If you're under the age of 18, then you don't need the means because you don't have the mental state to have force, fraud, or coercion. They just believe that there was an act and there was a purpose, and because you're a minor, you couldn't have the mental state for this. It's a very, very underutilized visa. There's 5,000 annually, and in 2017, only 14% was used. And the hardest part is people don't know that they're a victim of trafficking, especially sex trafficking, because they have this relationship with their trafficker that they believe that was out of love, and they just did this out of love. And so because of this relationship, they don't believe that they don't identify as a victim of trafficking. And so they don't say this to the police. They don't go to the police. And sometimes some police officers, they don't see the trafficking as well. You know, they might arrest a prostitute for prostitution, but they might not see the red flags to show that this actual person was a victim of trafficking and could be eligible for a T visa. And these are the requirements: victim of severe form of trafficking, physically present on the account of trafficking. So you don't need to enter the United States or cross an international border just for the trafficking. You can come here, let's say from Canada to Illinois as a tourist over the summer. But then if you end up in a trafficking situation, you can still be eligible for a T visa. And again, very similar to you have to show that you helped with the investigation unless you're under the age of 18 and that you've suffered extreme hardship based on this act. And again, the same reasons, you know, with the T visa, you can be granted your lawful permanent resident status. And this is sometimes why it's so difficult to recognize trafficking indicators. And you know, you have to really, and there's a lot of training out there for police officers and for social workers and caseworkers and social service workers, because it's really hard to see these red flags and to see these things and determine the person's in trafficking, because again, they don't identify as a victim. So emotional abuse, how they come to the country, do they owe a debt to someone and they're working off that debt? Unstable housing, lack of control and access. They're never alone. They can never use their cell phone. There's someone there always to sort of hover over them when they're talking to individuals. You know, they work illegally and sometimes they have their documents taken away. And again, their demeanor, you know, they avoid eye contact. They're in this complicated love relationship with a trafficker. And that's why it's so difficult to recognize T visas, and that's why they're so underutilized. Lastly, asylum. So asylum is a protection granted to non-citizens already in the US or arriving at the border who meet the international law definition of a refugee, which is under the UN 1951 Convention. And this is a person who is unable or unwilling to return to his or her home country and cannot obtain protection in that country due to past persecution or a well-founded fear of future persecution on the account of, and there's 5 categories: race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, and political opinion. I've been practicing immigration law for almost 13 years now, and I've done about a dozen asylum cases in immigration court, and they are the toughest cases to win. It's extremely difficult, very complicated. You know, you must apply within the first year of entering the United States. You need to have a lot of evidence. There's a high burden of proof. You have to show that you were a victim of past persecution or torture, which is a very high burden, or you have a fear of future persecution. there's a very low approval rate, and it goes from court to court. I know, I believe there's the immigration court in Atlanta has the lowest approval rate. There is a judge there that only approves 1% of asylum cases that come in his courtroom. And there's constant changes in the laws and the policies and the procedures. And so something that was, we thought that this would be a little bit better is no longer eligible now because the law has changed overnight, and that can just wipe out a person's case. Right now, there is a 4-year backlog, or as of September 2019, there's over 300,000 asylum applications pending affirmatively. That means that's filed with immigration. So it's a 4-year backlog. Defensive asylum means they're filed in the immigration court. And there's 1.17 million open removal cases with the average pending time of, 2 years. And so, for example, I have a asylum case in removal proceedings, and we had a court date in 2018, a court date in 2019, and the final court date, I hope, is in 2022. So during that time, we just wait. So it's extremely difficult for asylum law. And this is just a grant by country of nationality in 2018. Right now, the top 10 countries was number 1 was China with 18%, then Venezuela, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Egypt, Mexico, India, Russia, Syria, Pakistan, and then all other countries. And I do see a lot of asylum cases from Mexico, but the case law says generalized violence is not enough for asylum. And in Honduras, Guatemala, and Mexico, you see a lot of gang-related, cartel-related violence. And case after case, they say that generalized violence is not enough for asylum. So we see a lot of asylum seekers from these 3 countries. And unfortunately, we can't help them because the asylum laws are against them. So, that's a very, very quick overview on some humanitarian visas in immigration. Again, my name is Leah Kim. If you have any questions, please feel free. We are a partner with POC for access to justice. We provide free legal services. Partnering up with Liza and POC was one of the best things ever about the ADJ grant. I grew up in Arlington Heights. To give back to my community means so much to me. I was also in private practice for 10 years, and to be able to give my services and to tell my clients my services are absolutely free gives me so much purpose in life. And so I'm very grateful for the partnership. I'm very grateful for this job, and I'm thankful to be able to speak to all of you tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much to all of our speakers. I'm looking in the chat for some questions. And frequently we hear that citizens don't want their taxes going to undocumented immigrants. So what public benefits can they actually be awarded? Does anyone want to take that question? So
Lisa, do you want to go?
Well, let me just start by saying that they pay taxes, and they don't necessarily, when they report their taxes, they don't necessarily get them back, even if they're working with an ITIN number. Correct me if I'm wrong, Leah. So they are paying into our Social Security benefits right now. So they're not going to see any of those Social Security benefits come to them. So they are paying taxes. The second thing is the benefits that they can get oftentimes are for their US American-born citizen children. So we're talking about the medical card, Medicaid. When an undocumented mother is pregnant, she will get the moms and babies Medicaid or public aid card insurance that will cover her up to, I think it's a week now after birth, and so that she cannot get a postpartum checkup. She'll have to pay out of pocket for that. There is now Medicaid for 65 and over that are undocumented, yet this is no different in coverage than what Cook County will give to most folk, or what our federally funded clinics give to them already. Federally funded clinics will charge maybe $25 for office visits. There is no specialty care as well with Medicaid or with these federally funded clinics. There's very limited specialty care. There's no mental health riders, et cetera. So when I hear that I don't want my tax dollars going to immigrants, I laugh a little bit because they're paying into our Social Security. So I wonder if they ever said, well, I don't want my tax dollars to go to somebody else's Social Security. And that's already happening. Leah, did you want to add something that I missed?
Sure. So back in the day, if you enter the United States, you could get a Social Security number. It was very easy to get a Social Security number that is valid. And I've seen a lot of clients who've been working with a valid Social Security number who are undocumented for 30, 40, 50 years. And then it's time for them to retire. They're not eligible for Social Security benefits. Even though they've paid into the system with a valid Social Security number, they're not eligible for any form of the Social Security benefits because they have no lawful legal status in the United States. In order for them to get any of these Social Security benefits, they must go back to their home country, and that home country must have a treaty with the United States to allow these Social Security benefits to go to them through a third-party bank wire transfer. So they're not eligible for Social Security benefits. If you go to maptheimpact.org, you can see just how much state, local, and federal taxes undocumented immigrants pay into your area. And I think Illinois undocumented immigrants go at least, they pay, it's like, this was a few years ago that I looked up this number. It's like, I think $1.6 billion in taxes in Illinois, and they can't get any of that back. They're not eligible for a lot of these public benefits. The only, like Lisa said, is for their US citizen children. They're eligible, but it's only for the children. So they don't get, let's say food SNAP benefits. They don't get for the entire family. They just get it for the children. Also, they're not eligible for, subsidized housing or Section 8 housing. They're not eligible for, what else is there? They get, oh, go ahead.
We received the stipends during the CARE Act. They get nothing. And here, this was interesting. If I'm undocumented and I am married to an American citizen, I couldn't get that either, even though my husband is documented. We couldn't get the CARES package or the stimulus package.
What are the various ethnic groups that you service?
At POC or our clinic? At the clinic, we see them all. A majority of our clients are Spanish speaking, but we have a lot of Polish clients, Korean, Chinese, Mongolian, Indian, Pakistani. Most of our, I'm working on some Eastern European cases. So yes, we see them.
We see them all as well. Like at North Suburban Legal Clinic, we have a very large Russian elderly population. We have a very large South Asian population. We have a very large Middle Eastern population. And because we work closely with Harper College and our English as second languages, or English for non-native speakers, we see everybody. I have to tell you, when you ask also, who are the people in our neighborhood, Palatine, Hoffman Estates, lead the way for Honduran asylum seekers. Just so you know, that's who your neighbors are these days as well. We have a very, very large Honduran population coming
in. Do you find that immigrants are hesitant to seek police assistance?
Yes. Yes. And my job and our job, POC and us, it's our job to let them know that police are very aware and things are changing, that the police also want to be immigrant friendly. I did a presentation with POC with the Hanover Park mayor and chief of police, and we talked about how they want to work with the immigrant community. And I was just very much taken away by how wonderful and welcoming they were and they are. And so there is a fear, and a lot of it stems from what happened in their home country. The police are corrupt, they work with the cartels, or, domestic violence is a family matter. You don't take it outside of the house because you lose face. That's shameful. So it's also breaking down their cultural stigmas and their cultural barrier to call the police, and the fear that's come down through movies and rumors and the media. And in Illinois, there's the Illinois Trust Act, which does not allow the police to call Immigration Customs Enforcement on any of their victims or perpetrators unless there is a warrant out for their arrest, and it's like usually a violent crime or threat to national security. And so in Illinois, police do not and will not call Immigration Customs Enforcement to detain an individual just because of their immigration status, unless it is a violent crime. And when we did the presentation with Hanover Park Police, it was like single digits over the past 5-10 years that they gave us. And it was really for violent crimes, gang-related national security crimes. And I think none of us will, even as an immigration attorney, I'm not going to hesitate. If you're going to take a violent criminal off the street, take a violent criminal off the street. That I'm grateful for that. So I don't think any of us is going to argue that.
Can you explain what a sanctuary city is?
Lisa, me? Okay. Lisa, do you want to go with this one?
Yeah, go for it. Go for it.
Okay. A sanctuary city is a city that is, how do I explain this? They are open and welcoming to the immigrant community. They have things like the Trust Act to show that the police will not work with Immigration Customs Enforcement. They are, just like the name says, they will protect human rights. But again, individuals who are, violent criminals or a threat to national security, that's not under the sanctuary city. It's for those who have no criminal backgrounds, no criminal history. Their only, flaw is being in the United States, undocumented. And I think that's just sort of the overview on it. Lisa, if you probably have more information on this.
I think for us, as a trustee in Hanover Park, we saw the Trust Act as deciding for us that we would not be deporting or calling Homeland Security on this. And then, just as a matter of fact, having worked in police, I worked in Millen Police for a few years, it wasn't customary to call police on, ICE, the immigration police on folk. They're just working. There's just this fear because they bring you from their home country or because others have told them, yes, someone has been deported. Of course, they have, and most likely with good reason. But for the most part, no. And when we say the Trust Act says the police cannot call Homeland Security or Border Police to come and deport, we mean also the sheriff. So all sorts of policing, they cannot do that, and they will not go in their homes without a warrant. And so one of the things we do is we educate and we tell them this is what a warrant looks like, because we do have townships in Illinois where the sheriff isn't friendly with the Trust Act. And so in those towns, it gets muddled. And so we educate on this is what we have. And I know in California, we had terrible stories about how children were being separated and they would come home from school and mom and dad weren't there. And these were just everyday folk. And as Leah said, their only crime was not having documentation. And so the Trust Act doesn't allow for that to happen here. And that's what that made us a sanctuary city on its own.
Were immigrants hesitant to fill out the census?
Oh my God, yes.
Yes.
We battled this one. We battled this one it's kind of scary when someone just comes to your door and knocks and then you're like, who is that? Especially if you don't speak the language well. And then they're asking you all these questions. And one of the things we said was, listen, if the government wanted to come and get you, they would do that already because they know where you live. So they said, no, that's why I don't want to fill out the census. And I said, well, if you receive mail here, they know where you live. So that helped us a little bit, but it is. And so we are our clerk here worked really hard. I know in Palatine, we worked really hard. And it was right in the middle of COVID too. And all the changes the administration did to the reporting times. So it really did, we didn't reach as many. I know for sure that our Honduran population was not represented in the census as they should.
Okay, we have two more questions for you. One is, aren't many fearful that when they give information to schools for their children, that they could be deported?
I'll take this one. One of the most wonderful programs we've been able to be a part of in Palatine is working in partnership with District 15, and that was the hiring of bilingual liaisons. And these are women, for the most part, when it first began, they were women that were mothers, went to school in District 15, able to work, and their job was exactly that, was being the face of an immigrant in this country, in this school, ensuring parents to come to these events, to participate, that their voice is needed. It's important for their children to see that they're active, that they are their child's first teacher, and they have this responsibility. And that's really helped us with getting the word out to the families in District 15 about the importance of attending programs and being there for their kids. So that's really, really helped. We began with 3, we've had as many as 7. And these women are vital to the school system. So that's really been a very positive step and a model that's, you know, it's everywhere. In Chicago, it's very strong, but we're excited to see that coming out to the suburbs. And we've been able to do this now for 4 years, and I think it's really helped. It's helped to see a face saying, go to those parent-teacher events, come to the picnic, be a room mom. All of these things are so important to your child. Your child wants to see you at the school. And that's been some very, very essential messaging.
Do you see it extending to other school districts then?
I really do think it'd be incredible. In fact, actually, I think it's be important for the high school district. I knew that it would be a phenomenal program, an essential program, and I believe that every town would be looking at this model. It's a partnership. The women that we first identified, I'm also a GED teacher. They were my students. I knew their character, I knew their work ethic, and knew their ability to work legally, knew their love for the school district, love for their town and their state and their children. Liza works alongside of them and teaches them leadership skills, so they know how to teach the mom to be the voice of their child. So you don't just throw this woman into this job. It takes a lot of structure and a lot of support. But with the leadership training and the incredible support from District 15, it can happen in any school district. And there are women that are so ready and wanting that job. It could be men too. In our case, it just happens to be women.
And finally, if immigrants cannot receive SNAP or subsidized housing, how are they eating and where are they living?
Well, they're working. With an ITIN number, an immigrant can work as a contractual worker. A lot of them get paid for side jobs, and they can sign for leases. And so a lot of landlords have leases from month to month with them as well. And the way they eat is their children are eating. Their children get SNAP benefits, so the children are eating. We also have food pantries that they get food from. And like I said, they also work. And so they do side jobs. I know that we empower women to learn to sew, and some of them learn to sew and they'd start hemming to try to earn some sort of cash on their own. And we teach them, and then they go out on their own to see what they can do. And they're saving their money. I have to say 90% of the women I work with, higher, I would say 95% of the women I work with are victims or survivors of domestic violence. And their goal is to work so that they can have enough money to escape someday, and get that legal screening that we've given them, and they've got an action plan. So they are eating because we have churches, we have a great partnership with Prince of Peace and with PATH. And like I said, their children are privy to the food stamps or the SNAP program, and some of them do work and have contractual employment that way.
Hey,
Can I
Gail,
also just,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No,
No.
I also want to add that, most of the clients that Lisa and I see together, they are fleeing such horrible violence and persecution in their home country. So even if they're living in a one room, they're sharing a room with a house with dozens of other people and just eating just enough to get by, they have so much of a peace of mind knowing that they're in a country that can keep them safe and they know their children are next to them. They're some of the most resilient people that you'll ever meet. And I just want to, repeat that all of us are immigrants here, whether we came 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or 200 years ago. And we all have that immigrant hearts and we all have that resilience and the what's the word? I can't think of the word right now. It's too late. We all have that in us to be where we are now. And they're there. And even though it's a tough situation for them, they are still very grateful. And I learn so much from my clients on a daily basis.
Well, I think that was a beautiful statement to end on. And I want to thank our three presenters this evening. I've learned so much from you that I was not aware of, and I hope our audience, I'm sure, feels the same. There's lots of nice comments up here on the chat about the presentation. Gail, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Thank you so much to the work that both of your organizations are doing and to the three of you women tonight. And Lisa, you did mention that your grant is possibly up for renewal. Is there anything that if someone wanted to, would you like people to write to their legislators? Is there a particular committee? What kind of action step would you like?
So in Palatine, our representative Morrison, we've been working with, and Leah knows that we do this, POC does this, NSLAC does this, your local legislature, and let them know to please pass the budget. This is the funny thing, access to justice is under the Illinois Department of, help me out, Leah.
Health and Human Services.
Health and Human Services, because the Health and Human Services Department gathered enough information and research that shows that if you're undocumented immigrant in the United States, it is detrimental to your health. And a sick immigrant can bring that about to others. And so we want our immigrants to be healthy as well, because their children are the next generation that will lead anyway. So if Health and Human Services says, yeah, this is needed for the long-term well-being of Illinois, we're asking the legislator to please sign and okay the budget for IDHS. So if you want to reach out, email them, their information's on there. They're working for us, or as politicians, we're supposed to work for you, and let us know what you want us to do. So please do reach out. I know Tom Morrison is in Palatine, Fred Crespo, the Hoffman Estates area, Castro, Mussman. We've been in contact with all of them, and we continue to contact.
There's a question up here that I don't want to leave without asking. It says, how do we connect on a personal level with these families in a safe and respectful way so we learn about their stories?
That's really sweet. One of the things that POC is great at is our volunteer force. And so as Kathy will tell you, online you can sign up to become a volunteer. Now we will never, ever, 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 ever exploit our volunteers or our clients. And so we never put faces to the stories. We protect them at all costs, especially because so many have already been abused so much. And so, but coming alongside of them, I run the POC studio, which is the best place on earth, by the way. It was supposed to be a studio for art and all this, but it became a sewing studio. So we teach them how to make quilts, and we've made pads for girls in Africa and dresses and shorts for children in need in Guatemala, and hats for veterans that are homeless in Chicago, and those Bernie mittens, we were making them way before. And so in the studio, we're there, and you can sit and chat with someone who is working right next to you, and you're speaking the same language of just devotion to a charity project. And we also have the Roots Community Garden. We also are starting up again with our conversation group. So many are learning English, and the best way to do it is just to immerse. So I think volunteering is truly a way to go.
We are working on a project right now. It's still in its infancy stage, where some of our strong women leaders are telling parts of their story. And we're working along with a wonderful church partner, and they will be maybe putting some of these stories to illustration and art. So it's a work in progress. We'll know more in June, but I think it's gonna be beautiful. And when it comes to fruition, we'll certainly get it out to Gail and Camille, and they can get out to the rest of you. So,
Perfect.
so we'll let you know.
Okay.
And I just want to add really quickly, the fact that you guys are here on a Wednesday night listening to us, that you're asking the questions, to learn the proper terminology, to just be a little bit more self-aware, says it all. This is a huge first step. And volunteer POC, volunteer at your local, church, temple, synagogue, school, but you guys made a huge step for being with us tonight. So we thank you so much.
Just one real quick thing. We're celebrating a time of remembrance, peace, and hope. And I put the PDF on there because I think this would be the best way to reach you guys, because you guys are an amazing group. But we'll definitely be sending that to Gail as well. We're just having a little get together, and that's a great way to get to know POC as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all. Have a wonderful Memorial weekend, and we thank you for your service and for all of your attendance this evening. And again, if you're not a member of the League of Women Voters, we would love to have you join us.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you. Good night.